Story number 1: The Lullaby. The old Victorian house loomed on the hill, a silhouette against the bruised twilight sky. Sarah, a wisp of a girl with nerves jangling like wind chimes, clutched the worn teddy bear keychain her grandma had given her. It was her first solo babysitting gig, and the unsettling quiet of the place wasn't helping. The Peterson family, kind, reserved folks, had assured her their 8-year-old daughter, Lily, was a dream. But dreams can turn into nightmares, especially in a house that seemed to hold its breath. Inside, the air hung heavy with dust motes dancing in the single bulb's glow. Portraits with unnaturally wide smiles stared down from the walls, their oil-painted eyes seeming to follow Sarah's every move. Lily, a wisp of a girl herself, with eyes the color of twilight, greeted Sarah with a shy smile. Putting her at ease became Sarah's mission. They played board games, giggling as Lily made up fantastical rules. By bedtime, a strange sense of camaraderie had bloomed. Lily's room was a stark contrast to the rest of the house, bright and adorned with hand-drawn pictures of fantastical creatures. Sarah tucked her in, warmth spreading through her as Lily snuggled deeper into the covers. "Grandma used to sing me a lullaby," Lily whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "But I can't remember all the words." Sarah felt a pang of sympathy. "Maybe I can make one up for you?" Lily's eyes widened. "Really?" With a smile, Sarah started humming a soft melody, weaving words about a brave princess and a friendly dragon. Lily's eyes drifted shut, a contented sigh escaping her lips. Sarah finished the lullaby, the silence in the room heavier than before. Then, a sound, faint at first, like a whisper through cobwebs. A lullaby, sung in a voice like dry leaves rustling in the wind. It didn't come from the hallway, but from somewhere unseen, deeper within the house. The melody was similar to Sarah's, but the words were different, chillingly so. They spoke of shadows reaching, of eyes that watched, and of a sleep that never ended. Sarah froze, the hairs on her arms prickling. Lily stirred, her brow furrowed. "Grandma?" she called out, her voice trembling. Panic clawed at Sarah's throat. There was no grandma in the house. The lullaby continued, growing louder, closer. It seemed to crawl up the stairs, seeping into Lily's room. Suddenly, a draft of cold air swept through the room, extinguishing the bedside lamp. In the darkness, Sarah felt a presence. A weight settled on the bed, pushing Lily down. "Get out!" Sarah screamed, scrambling back, adrenaline pumping. She fumbled for her phone, its weak flashlight beam cutting through the inky blackness. But the weight on the bed was gone. Lily coughed, tears streaming down her face. "What was that?" she whimpered. Sarah didn't know. All she knew was they weren't alone. She grabbed Lily's hand, her flashlight casting grotesque shadows on the walls. As they fled the room, the lullaby reached a crescendo, a chilling promise lingering in the air. "Sleep now, little one. Sleep forever." Sarah burst through the front door, Lily clinging to her like a lifeline. Behind them, the house stood silent, the portraits in the dim porch light no longer seeming to follow. They ran until they reached the street, collapsing onto a neighbor's porch, gasping for breath. The police arrived, bewildered by Sarah's panic story. They searched the house, finding nothing out of the ordinary. The Petersons, returning early, were horrified. They swore no lullaby was ever sung in that house. Years later, Sarah still can't explain what happened. The memory of the unseen presence, the chilling lullaby, lingers, a reminder of the night the house on the hill whispered a promise of a sleep that never ended. Story number 2: The Marked Child. The job board advertisement was simple: babysitter needed for one night, high pay. Intrigued, 22-year-old Alex applied. A Mrs. Abernathy called him, her voice raspy like sandpaper. The details were sketchy. Her son, Thomas, was special and needed someone understanding. Alex, ever the optimist, shrugged it off. Easy money. The Abernathy house stood isolated at the end of a winding road. Cobwebs draped the porch swing like tattered curtains. Inside, the air hung thick with the scent of mothballs and something faintly metallic. A gaunt woman with eyes like faded photographs greeted him. Mrs. Abernathy explained Thomas had a rare genetic condition, causing him to be hypersensitive to light and sound. Alex swallowed his unease. The pay was enough to cover his rent for 2 months. He could handle a few quirks. He was led to a darkened room. A thin boy with pale skin and luminous green eyes sat on the floor, drawing in a sketchbook. This was Thomas. He didn't speak, just watched Alex with an unnerving intensity. The night stretched long. Alex read ghost stories by flashlight, their flickering shadows dancing on the walls. Suddenly, Thomas slammed his sketchbook shut, his voice a rasping whisper, "They're coming." Alex's heart hammered. Who? The marked ones, Thomas said, pointing at himself. A strange symbol, a swirling vortex of lines, marred his arm. Alex's blood ran cold. He'd seen that symbol before, in a childhood nightmare. A guttural growl echoed from outside. Then, a scratching sound at the door. Alex fumbled for the phone, but the line was dead. He felt a cold sweat clam down his spine. This wasn't a genetic condition. This was something darker. Suddenly, the doorknob rattled violently. Alex shoved a heavy chest against the door, his muscles straining. Thomas scurried under the bed, his eyes wide with terror. The scratching grew frantic, turning into a pounding. The door splintered, a dark, shadowy form lunging through the opening. Alex screamed, grabbing a heavy candlestick. The creature, vaguely humanoid but with elongated limbs and glowing red eyes, screeched, a sound that ripped through the silence. A primal fear surged through Alex. He swung the candlestick with all his might, connecting with the creature's shoulder. It recoiled, hissing in fury. Alex knew it wouldn't hold for long. He had to get Thomas out of here. Window. Thomas rasped from under the bed. Alex scrambled towards it, shattering the brittle glass with his elbow. He shoved furniture in front of the door, creating a makeshift barricade. Heaving Thomas onto his back, he clambered through the window, landing hard on the soft earth. Pain shot through his ankle, but he ignored it, scrambling into the woods. Behind him, the house echoed with unearthly screams. They ran blindly through the undergrowth, branches clawing at their clothes. Dawn finally broke, painting the sky with streaks of gold and pink. They collapsed under a massive oak tree, gasping for breath. Exhausted but alive, Alex looked at Thomas, whose green eyes held a flicker of gratitude. He'd saved a marked child from whatever lurked in the shadows. Later, the police arrived, alerted by the shattered window. They found the Abernathy house deserted, no sign of Mrs. Abernathy or the creature. Alex, clutching a sketch Thomas had drawn, a chilling depiction of himself and the creature locked in battle, remained silent. He knew some stories were better left untold. The experience left a deep scar on Alex. The nightmares returned, more vivid, more terrifying. The symbol, the creature, the chilling screams, a constant reminder of the night he babysat the marked child. He never spoke of it, but the memory lingered, a chilling whisper in the back of his mind, a reminder that sometimes, the darkness lurks closer than we think. Story number 3: The Toy Box. The Harrington house vibrated with a frenetic energy despite the late hour. 10-year-old twins, Emily and Ethan, bounced off the walls, their laughter echoing through the cavernous living room. Their parents, exhausted from a long day, begged Sarah, their usual babysitter, to take them upstairs. Sarah, a college student with a passion for early childhood development, wasn't fazed. She ushered the twins to their room, a cheerful space decorated with mismatched furniture and overflowing toy boxes. It was a far cry from the sterile minimalism Sarah was used to. "All right, monsters," Sarah said with a smile, "let's get you into your PJs." Ethan, the more reserved of the two, scurried to change while Emily rummaged through her overflowing toy box. She emerged with a dusty porcelain doll, its once vibrant colors faded. "This was Grandma's," Emily whispered, clutching the doll like a talisman. "Her name is Beatrice." Sarah took the doll. Beatrice's vacant, button eyes seemed to stare right through her. An unsettling chill ran down her spine, but she dismissed it as nerves. Ethan returned, his face pale. "The window's open," he mumbled, pointing to the ajar window facing the overgrown backyard. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Leaving a window open in a house with rambunctious twins was a recipe for disaster. She excused herself, heading downstairs to close it. As she reached the living room, a sudden gust of wind slammed the window shut. Sarah jumped, surprised. Turning, she noticed a framed picture on the mantelpiece had fallen. It was a picture of a younger Mrs. Harrington, her smile warm and genuine, holding a little girl with vacant eyes, a girl holding a porcelain doll. A jolt of terror coursed through Sarah. The doll in the picture, it was Beatrice. Was it? No, it couldn't be. Just a coincidence. She righted the picture, her hands shaking. Back upstairs, the twins lay tucked in bed, a semblance of peace settling in. Just then, Emily whimpered. "Sarah, where's Beatrice?" Sarah's stomach clenched. "She's probably just back in the toy box, honey." A choked laugh escaped her lips. Emily, however, insisted on finding Beatrice. Sarah caved, her unease growing with every creak of the floorboard as she traversed the room. But Beatrice wasn't in the toy box. Panic began to gnaw at Sarah. She searched everywhere, under the bed, behind the curtains, even Ethan's closet. Nothing. The twins, sensing her fear, huddled together whimpering. Desperation clawing at her throat, Sarah ran downstairs. She had to call Mrs. Harrington. But as she reached for the phone, a horrifying sound froze her in place. A child's laughter, sweet and eerie, filled the room. The laughter came from the living room. Sarah crept towards the sound, her heart pounding against her ribs. Through the doorway, she saw an unsettling sight. Beatrice, the once dusty doll, lay on the floor, pristine and life-sized. Her vacant button eyes now seemed to hold a mischievous glint. And she was laughing, a sound that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. Suddenly, the laughter stopped. The porcelain face turned towards Sarah, a chilling smile etched onto it. A voice, raspy and inhuman, rasped from the doll, "They'll play with me now, won't they?" Sarah screamed, scrambling back. Before she could react, a gust of wind blew out the candles, plunging the house into darkness. The twins' terrified cries mingled with the chilling whispers that seemed to originate from every corner of the room. Sarah bolted for the door, adrenaline pumping. She burst through the front door, collapsing onto the porch steps, gasping for breath. The house behind her loomed in the darkness, an oppressive silence blanketing it now. The police arrived, alerted by Sarah's frantic call. They searched the house, finding nothing out of the ordinary. The Harringtons, called home by the commotion, were bewildered. Years later, Sarah still can't explain what happened. The memory of the laughing doll, the whispers in the dark, continues to haunt her dreams. She never babysat again, the trauma forever etched in her mind. The Harrington house stands empty now, a silent testament to the terrifying night a babysitter encountered a toy box with a sinister secret.